I just wanted to say, thank you game for telling me my graphics drivers were out of date. I updated them, because we take the initiative to make sure everything runs smoothly. We also follow up on the games we play so we can learn from them. This time we follow up on the games we looked at between October and December of 2014 to see how they evolved, the new content, the community, the problems with the games, and if they were addressed or not. Have they improved with time, or have they become worse? Let's take a look. I never really could get into the Civilization series. It's always been a just okay experience for me, and Civilization Beyond Earth doesn't seem to change that. It seems okay, but it didn't impress me too much. I like having aircraft and units with guns, but the game discourages expansion and PvP combat. 4X stands for Explore, Expand, Exploit, and Exterminate. What we have here is a 2X game, so what did they do to improve it? A few patches have been released to balance the game. Wonders were rarely built because they were useless for their cost compared to other buildings, so they gave them some major buffs. Trade routes have been reworked as well. Since it's one of the best resource generators for a city, they toned them down for smaller cities to prevent its late-game abuse, but they also made them much easier to work with thanks to a new option to auto-renew trade routes. It's also easier to go with the Harmony affinity since friendly aliens will no longer prevent citizens from working the land at their location. Many of these changes were made in response to player feedback, so it's good to know that they're listening to the community and making the necessary changes to make the game fun for everyone. However, I'm still noticing a few of the same problems I've had a few months earlier. The health system and the 1 unit per tile rule continues to discourage expansion and PvP combat. Every AI player continues to act the same way, very peaceful and passive, so I have to play the same way in response to that because it feels like I get punished when I try to play differently. They have announced the Rising Tide expansion. It allows you to explore and colonize the depths of the oceans, and it also includes new factions, units, diplomatic options, and a few other things. The expansion will be the same price as the Brave New World expansion for Civilization 5, but to my understanding, it was a vast improvement to the original game. The same could be said for the previous games, so I think it's safe to say that this expansion will do the same thing for Beyond Earth. Many people have called this a reskin of Civilization 5 sold as a standalone game. That's a real shame. I actually like sci-fi stuff more than fantasy. Space is the final frontier after all. It's great that they're continuing to support the game and its community, but I feel they're not doing enough to do this game justice. This War of Mine does a really good job at illustrating events that happen to civilians in a real war zone. They don't show the more horrific things that happen, and some things had to be tweaked to make the gameplay balanced and fun because it's a game and you're supposed to enjoy it. I don't think I've ever experienced a game like this, so I'm really glad I played it. It's a single-player game, and although it's supposed to be a replayable one, there's very little content to speak of. Fortunately, they did add some new content. They added a few new locations and a new random hideout. They also added a Create a Story mode where you can choose your characters and locations. You can even create your own characters, but their selection of abilities are limited to a very short list of occupations. Unfortunately, it's only a minimal amount of playable content added here. This is a game that's best played when you know nothing about it. Once you figure out a few key things about the mechanics, it becomes almost trivial to win. Everything at a location is predictable after your first visit. There's no lasting danger anywhere. No hostile soldiers or gangs just randomly show up at a location to put the hurt on people. I can't carry everything back home, so what I do every night is consolidate everything I can find into a single location close to the exit. Then I can just come back the next night and take what I need without having to search for everything again. I only have to visit 4 locations to survive, and I can also trade for resources during the day. The only way you can enjoy this game after a few playthroughs is if you enjoy self-imposed challenges. Play with only one character, don't do any trading, don't build any gardens or traps, the list goes on. You're a civilian in a war zone. You're supposed to take every advantage you can get your hands on because, guess what? Surviving in a war zone is supposed to be hard by default. Once you figure out the game, surviving is easy. Again, I'm really glad I played it. It's still a fantastic game and I would recommend it to anyone who wants to try something different. Just don't expect to play the game for hundreds of hours before you get bored, because once you solve the puzzle, you don't go back to solve it again. Elite Dangerous is a very complicated game. Simply grasping the basics can take hours, but once you've been to a few ports, moved some cargo around, and blown up a few space pirates, you've basically played the whole game. It's extremely lacking in content, but somehow, someway, the little content it did have kept my attention for hours on end, and they've added even more content. In addition to new ships, they've added the Wings feature to the game, which allows you to form a group of 4 players and play the game in co-op. Essentially, they're wingmen. Explore the galaxy and take on a few contracts with your buddies. They also added the power play feature. You can pledge your allegiance to one of 10 galactic powers and earn bonuses. Players vote on a goal such as conquering a star system, and missions are generated in support of that goal. I also found a few changes that improved the existing gameplay. The credits from bounty hunting have increased, and this is helping to decrease the grind in buying new stuff. I've upgraded my ship faster than I did a few months ago. I'm really liking this game even more. Elite Dangerous is evolving, not just with the developers adding new features and content, but with the players themselves changing the game world. It's a sign of a good game when it's really addicting to play with such little content, and an even better game when content is continuing to be added. For fans of space combat simulators, this should tide you over until the full release of Star Citizen. This game may even be a solid competitor when that happens. These are the games I looked at between October and December of 2014. Next time, we'll follow up on the games between January and March of 2015. Thanks for watching!